Hello, Jonathan. Here we are recording together again, but this time for the Be Mythical podcast, the inaugural
In,
episode, in fact.
indeed, it's amazing to be back, first of all, and incredibly exciting, given what we are birthing today, or in the moments following this, in the coming days ahead. So, yeah, really good to be here, and feeling very excited.
I know when we were chatting about what we were intending, who knows if it's actually going to happen, but what we were intending to talk about in this episode, we were talking a bit about the origin story of mythical itself, like mythical energy that's really, brought us to where we are. And reflecting myself on what that was like, I was brought to mind that moment when you and I had like 5 days, I think it was, before we were about to launch the new brand, the rebirth that we've been waiting 3.5 years to do for Wake the Wild. And we were about to create just the next iteration of Wake the Wild Sovereign, which was a program at that point I think we'd run for several years before. It was like, great, we've now got the foundation of Waking the Wild. We can just, now it all fits so nicely. We were just about to open the doors to the next 6 month cohort of that. And then we just felt something new coming in. And I so remember that moment where we were like, what is it? What is it? And I went to the door, as I often do, to let the dogs in or out. And I came back, and I remember you saying it was like I'd seen a ghost. And I was like, it's mythical. And then it was just like, oh my
It,
goodness,
I,
it's
I,
landed.
I believe it. What it wasn't that it's mythical. It was something. You came back and you said something myth, and it was again that word which for us has been very prominent in many ways, but it was in that context that lit the touch paper for what we were feeling, which is we knew it was no longer aligned to keep going as the current incarnation of that offering. But yes, as these things unfold, it was very magical in the way it came through, and like you said, it was before we was about to launch with Waking the Wild, which was an interesting position to be in for us to finally, after 3.5 years, to relaunch as Waking the Wild, knowing full well that this was a temporary relaunch, as we knew what was coming. And I think that's the thing that we've always, it's always been clear where we were heading, but we weren't aware of how long the journey would take to arrive at where we are. And just for a bit of context, in May, it'll be 10 years. It'll be a decade since Lian and myself met and embarked upon this very mythical journey. And it feels so good. I mean, this is again in this modern world, we struggle to be patient with things. We struggle to see things in 10-year terms. And for us, a theme we often see, don't we, is these decades that are really these key chapters that it requires for us to align in whatever ways we need to align to meet what's coming, our truth, what we're being called into. And we've been humbled time and time again with that. And so yes, that was a really powerful moment. And that has, how long ago was that now? Is that a year and a half?
Yeah, not even that. It was
No.
November 2023, so only just over a year ago. In fact, that in itself was quite magical. So we had that realization that Waking the Wild Sovereign, at least in its current form, was no longer aligned. But then it was so clear this isn't just about Waking the Wild Sovereign, this is about everything we do. And I feel like we almost made a bit of an agreement with spirit, like, okay, we will, but not quite yet. Can we at least, go ahead with this rebirth? We spent 3.5 years, and certainly those sort of 6 months on the lead up to that, really putting everything into. But we always knew this day that's kind of we're in right now was coming. We knew, and so it's kind of magical that it's like a year after we had that. Sorry, no, that would have been why are we now 2024? So 2022. Sorry, is it? I'm really confused. 2022. Sorry, you know me in numbers. It was November.
I was just thinking that I probably shouldn't have asked you how anything to do with dates and how long ago it was.
It was November 2022 that we rebirthed as Wake in the Wild. So a year later, almost exactly, in November 2023 was when we just had that just absolute knowing we can't leave it any longer, it's time. So we'd already created the offering Mythical, obviously, but we still hadn't obviously done the wider rebirth. And then almost exactly a year later, I was getting Facebook memories come up for like this time a year ago, you launched Wake in the Wild, and like here we are now, about to rebirth as Be Mythical. So yeah, the timings, that's kind of and it happening to be on the like decade mark as well of the start of our mythical journey. In hindsight, it's all perfect and so timely.
And it's probably worth noting that even though we knew we were going to change to mythical in some shape or form, it really wasn't much of a change, which is why it did feel aligned to birth Waking the Wild into the world, as it's not that anything that we spoke to or what Waking the Wild represents is no longer aligned with Be Mythical and everything that holds. It's more, it encompasses that, and it's a refinement and a real honoring of an energetic that only now is ready to be birthed into the wholesome sphere that makes up Be Mythical. And so this rebrand is the reason why this rebrand isn't going to take 3.5 years is down to a lot of that. A lot of the work we did in that rebirthing process into Waking the Wild was in support of this, which may or may not be clear, but I just wanted to speak that out because I think it's an important point.
Yeah, I think actually us segueing into like, what do we mean by mythical, about being mythical, this notion of Be Mythical? I think that'd be a helpful thing to journey into. But first, I just want to agree with you. There's something, a bit of a blessing, really, given we were kind of given this, like, just very clear, it's time to rebirth again, even though you've just about to rebirth. But there was also this, and most of those years haven't really been about a brand at all. They've been about us really articulating the philosophy that we're working with, and also like crystallizing those methods that we've spent years and years and years creating and honing and testing. And so that's still the same foundation. None of that's changed. The underlying philosophy that we bring to everything we do is the same one, and it's the one that we've spent years, if not lifetimes, in the working of. But you go first. What do you feel when those words Be Mythical? What do they evoke within you?
To truly be yourself, to be the truth of who you are, and live the truth of your life, to, as we described, be your medicine. And for us to really be our medicine, to be the gift we came here to be, to live the life our soul chose to come here for, it requires truth in irrespective of, I think, wherever you look, in every corner of the globe, with any lineage, there is always a journey of arriving at the truth of something. And for us, we really don't believe there's anything more powerful than arriving at the truth of who you are, what you've come here for, how you are here, how you can give your medicine to the world, how you can truly honor yourself, how you can truly honor the sacred, how you can really honor the old soul that you are in this new world. And this is the thing that's really changed. I think the message that Be Mythical represents is timeless. It's ancient. It's as old as time itself. However, where we find ourselves in this new world, I mean, hey, we can't speak beyond certain thousands of years ago, but it's unlikely that we've ever faced such a challenging time for old souls to choose to come into creation in this world and be their medicine, be their myth, live out their myth. And so those two words, be mythical, for us is the most powerful message there is. You know, if we could put a message on a billboard or anything like that, for me, it would be that, be mythical. Even if it's just from an inquisitive standpoint of, what's that mean? Be mythical. It has that energetic where and this isn't for everyone, and it's worth noting when we use that language, old souls, what we mean by that are, there's a few different things, but the two key areas that really stand out for me is souls that have journeyed many times over, and also souls that have chosen to come into this world, this experience of life with deep work to do, with deep medicine for the world that in their own way really moves the needle forward in many ways that are beyond our conception. And so, yeah, I'll take a pause there because there's much more I can say, but I'd love to know what comes up for you, Lian.
So, yes to all of that. And then the part that I think perhaps has been, for me, a real reclamation and re-enchantment has been the word that's come up several times today. It's kind of been a real re-enchantment, is falling in love with myth again. And I know you agree with me when I say this. For me, they absolutely go hand in hand. In order for us to live our own myth, we also need to step back into that mythical worldview, to be in that world of myth, fairy tale, giants and gods and goddesses and druids and nymphs. You know, like, it really is a way of seeing the world and being in the world and being invited into a possibility that's beyond what we're told is possible for humans in this crazy modern world. And as you know, because my childhood was so steeped in magic, but then also the myths, the archetypes of Dungeons and Dragons and Lord of the Rings, it was something that I was really blessed to have been raised with as a worldview, as if that was just normal to live in an enchanted, mythical way. And then I've had to come back to, had to remember. And I now see that, and this is for me personally, but I truly believe this is the same for almost all of us. For me, a vital part of living my own soul's myth was also to embrace the enchantment of myth, of a mythical worldview and all that it brings. And going back to what you were saying earlier, how it's not that what we were talking about with Waking the Wild is now no longer relevant or no longer something that's important. Like, for us, we see that doorway, that portal of the wild being, you know, probably the most accessible, most important for people in this crazy modern world. And yet there's something that opens even wider when we look at this portal through that lens of what it means to be mythical. It's like, yes, it's the wild and it's everything. This just, you know, I can't even get my hands around the size of the possibility that's opened up when we think of this through that lens of a mythical worldview.
Yeah, it's a huge thing, and again, something like you said, so timely, because it can be so. If we was to go by the status quo, the socialization, domestication, the conditioning that we've received, to be mythical is to be fanciful. Myth is now being portrayed as meaning false, and so
Mm.
it's such a really important task we've been given by spirit, honored to really bring forth, is like you say, is to reclaim that, the truth of what that means. And the mythical nature of life hasn't gone anywhere. It's always there. It's woven into the nature and tapestry of life itself. It's just that in this disconnected modern world, this busyness, this incessant cycle of consumption and output, we lose connection with that. And the only time we'll give ourselves the opportunity is maybe watching Game of Thrones or something like that, or Vikings, that really elicits that deep soul knowing
Mm.
within us. And so, yeah, I love what you said, and I just want to tie that back to that important piece that we're here for, is to really reclaim that, and to really, like I said, help people remember, to connect with their soul, to know the truth, if it's aligned for them, of what their soul's calling them into. And if they're an old soul, chances are that's a mythical life, and one that is the most rich and rewarding life there is. Not an easy life, necessarily, but the most rich, rewarding, and fulfilling life there is. And no and, full stop.
Mm. There's two things have come to mind as I was listening to you. One is that in an Eastern tradition, um, there's often this real knowing that part of that tradition is, and it could be numerous traditions, it could be Buddhist or Vedanta, or all sorts of different things. There is this recognition that some souls are old souls, and they from a very early age are recognized as being such, whether that's a reincarnation of an important figure, or someone who has already gone through so many incarnations, and then they might have, for example, an experience of samadhi at quite a young age, and really seeing, okay, this is someone who is meant to be on this path and guided and held and identified as such, to know themselves as that. And as I was hearing you talk, I was like, that's what is really missing in our culture. We sometimes talk about it from the lens of the people who are meant to be shamans in the village. It's like they would be recognized as such. And an important part of us living mythically is to have ways of identifying ourselves, as to know who we are. If we are an old soul, we come here with traits, ways of being, even particular life experiences that can be used to identify ourselves as old souls. I'm just realizing, like, this is probably a whole episode in itself, actually, that we may need to make. But that really occurred to me. It's like part of living mythically is to understand, like, what kind of myth is going to be unique, but there is also a kind of myth that old souls have come to live out that are different. And so to know yourself as that is really helpful. I'll
And
say the other thing I was going to say, but I'm sure you probably want to touch on that too. The other thing I was thinking, that both in something you said right at the start of this show, and you were saying something about, about the fact it's been a decade since we first came together, and about that, like, these things do take time, like living like a real depth of our myth and creating from the depth of our soul takes time. And then you mentioned again something like, this pace and productivity, this modern world. And that for me also is something that being mythical is the antidote to, where when we start to, like, touch into the fact that myths, firstly, go back to ancient times, but also often will take place either for immortals that live many human lifetimes, or take place through different incarnations, that gives us this sense of perhaps slight timelessness, well, we aren't in such a hurry. We aren't so hooked into the timelines and the pressures of the narrative of this crazy modern world, that things have to happen in a certain way in a certain time. It gives us this different way of engaging with time, where it's not that we're kind of completely outside of it, but there is a kind of like one foot in and one foot out, where we can see these timelines that are happening in a different way. And that for me, I think is so important, because without that, it's really difficult to decondition ourselves from that like way of being, like, in that modern way of being, like be modern versus be mythical, I suppose. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of
De-
that.
Definitely. I mean, that is easily the yeah, I think so. The most challenging thing for us old souls in this new world to face is that without that ability to create spaciousness, to slow down, to open, to receive the whispers of our soul, of nature, that is what guaranteed almost a mythical life for old souls previously, has been taken away from us. And I really had a spark come through early when you were speaking before, because I'm sure we must have touched on this, but I was really appreciating how teachings like human design and gene keys came through in these times, which are ways in which help people arrive at the truth of who they are through inquiry. But even through these mediums, the key thing is always there. Like, we have to create spaciousness, even if it's just on the inside. If we can't slow down on the inside and create these sacred openings, these sacred pauses in which we can just engage in the questions that we long for answers to, it's incredibly challenging, if not impossible. And so, that's the great challenge that you and I are tackling at the moment. But there aren't many ways around that, as I said. So it's a key area, and one certainly worthy of a podcast or podcast series in and of themselves.
So it feels as though this would be a timely point to talk about some of the changes that we've got coming, in that one of the things that really sparked this realization that it's time for us to rebirth as Be Mythical was realizing what's required for people to do so, and then for us to be able to provide them. Because again, even if, say, for example, what we see over and over is people will join us for a crucible and then kind of go back into the modern world, and they certainly may be in a better place to live their myth than they were before joining us. But it's a challenge. It really is something that is very difficult to do alone. And so often, people will find ways of staying in our community, coming back to join us for crucibles. But one of the things we really have been, journeying with for a very long time, this sense of, what does it mean to have a true community of people who are walking this path? But that's certainly part of what was clear to us. This isn't just about, it's never going to be, with us, it's never going to be just a rebrand anyway, but it isn't just about that kind of, what is it that we're here to do and how do we express that? It's about tangible ways to support people in being mythical. So I'd love to hear some of the things that you feel kind of like most passionate to talk about. And again, some of these are like literally in the works right now, but that feels a really important thing. This isn't an advert. This is about us fundamentally saying, like, these things we see are needed, and this is what we're doing about it.
That there are these pillars, these tenets that are non-negotiable. These energetic qualities that we are meant to be in communion with, not just connection with, deep communion with. And yes, a lot of this journey is done by ourselves in the deepest privacy and intimacy of our own hearts and souls, but yet it's very few souls have come here to do this on their own. And if they are going to truly, if they are really an old soul and they've got some deep medicine inside themselves to actualize in this modern world, it's highly unlikely that they're going to be able to do that on their own. There isn't really any precedent being set in the past for this. There's always been this key component of either a sensei, a master, a teacher, a guide, just let alone a village. Let's just start there. It starts with a village. Usually you're born into a village. The way you were speaking to earlier was describing that sense of whether it be an elder or a medicine woman or someone that would see and feel into the eyes of that newborn and would know and touch their medicine and share that wisdom with whoever was there. Like this, that energetic of community, of the tribe, is so important, which is obviously a key part of what we'll be speaking to shortly with regards to the academy. But yeah, certainly the wild is the again, we can go into many. I'll pick one. So I'll speak to the wild. Like this is one that again is non-negotiable. If you are not spending any significant period of time in nature, slowing down, being in deep communion in a space of no demand time, it's going to be very unlikely again that you can hear the call of your soul. Because when you're plugged into this modern world, it's almost impossible. And don't get me wrong, spirit will sometimes give you one hell of a punch in the gut, or a beautiful experience that can just stop any moment this modern world can throw at you. But until you slow down or create some spaciousness where you can connect back to nature, which essentially is to truth itself. Nature is where we would always discover the answer to things. We didn't used to discover them online in reading something. It's there, present in the DNA, the structure, the tapestry of nature itself. And so for me, yeah, if there was the one that would come up in addition to what you spoke to would be the wild, to rewild oneself. And that's why we always spoke to it in Waking the Wild. To rewild oneself is just to get back to the truth of who you are prior to the conditioning, prior to the socialization, prior to the domestication. And so, the wild and deeply communing with the wild is, another big one.
So you mentioned the academy. Would you like to share more?
Gladly. Yes. So we are very pleased to announce that we are to honor the multitude of energetics we've been called into. We are creating an academy. And this is going to be one hell of a mythical academy for old souls in this sacred art of uncovering the truth of who they are, their medicine, and actualizing that with their fellow kin. And this is such a key bit into what you were speaking to, is that community side of things. It's how we first started over 10 years ago. You know, this is what we were called into. Our astrology, I mentioned Gene Keys and human design, is littered for both of us, with that being such a crucial part of what we're here for, to create community, to bring these souls together. And for a period, we were called on a path that, not that it didn't include community, anyone who's worked with us know that they end up like meeting up outside, they stay together, but we really were called to create the most incredible academy. And that word academy came through really importantly, which has its origins in Greek mythology, and essentially it is a place where you arrive at truth, the truth of who you are and what you're here for. And so, for us, there was no better name, no better structure to have that within. And this is going to be the place for every way to work with us, to answer the great challenges of this modern world, such as finding your kin, finding those, your teachers, your guides, your mentors, finding the material for your liberation, the actualization, the reclamation, the liberation of your truth. That is all going to be in there in so many incredible ways. And yeah, initially we'll be doing a little bit of a soft launch that we'll maybe speak to, but yeah, within the coming months that will form more and more. But that's a little bit about the Academy. Lian, would you like to add some more?
It's again, the name itself was a real journey for us, because there was this absolute clear sense that, community is at the heart of this, but it's a community that's not just gathered together through, for example, location, in the case of, modern day town or village, or around a particular belief set. We have a lot of, supposed so-called communities that arise in this modern world that are kind of, gathered together around, I don't know, veganism or the paleo diet or CrossFit or whatever the thing is. This very much is, yes, a coming together, but in service of something that we see really is the point of being here. This, again, coming into our own truth, living our own myth. So it needs to have that very clear understanding that it absolutely is a coming together of your kin, with other old souls, training, doing that work of training to understand what is true. That work of becoming something that is, rare as anything in this modern world, that requires a lot of us. And so we spent time really uncovering kind of like, what's the word that for us goes some way to capture that, albeit, again, we've got modern ideas of what academy means. And when we're talking about it, it really is encapsulating so many different energies. It is a community, yes. It's a magic school. It's like one of the ancient mystery schools. It's also a temple space. We'll be running, one of the things that we see, and we also hear this over and over again from people who have journeyed with us in longer term crucibles such as medicine, that, a sense of, oh my goodness, I realize now how important ceremony is, regular ceremony is for my soul. And so part of the academy will be that coming together in, likely monthly ceremony, where we really get a chance to nourish ourselves in that way, like see each other in that way. And so it's, it's one word, but is a word that we found is kind of closest to allowing ourselves, to contain all those energies. That we see again are vital, absolutely vital. And it's certainly going to grow over time, like I suspect at some point. Again, something we've been asked for over and over again is to train other people to do what we do, which we've already made a start with, but starting to do that more widely. There's old souls who really feel such a resonance with the way that we do what we do, that they want to do it as well. So I imagine like this is going to be an evolution that's going to keep on going and going and going. But certainly right from the point where doors open, having that opportunity to consciously come together in this work, this deepest soul work, it feels as though, I feel like we've said this to each other so many times over the past decade. Doesn't it feel good to say decade at long last as well? But it feels like, this is us being our medicine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, full power. It really is. It really is the, not that there's so much, there's a hell of a lot for us, but this is a real up-leveling moment, like the closing of one chapter, the opening of another. And, yeah, again, I love how you touched on the wording there with Academy. With so much of what we're being called into, it is again to reclaim these words that this modern world has distorted, loaded, and done various different things with. And yeah, that's such a key part. But yeah, the ritual and the ceremony piece is, yeah, we were talking about, these pillars, these tenets. That one is one of the primary ones as well. And again, it's the thing we are missing so much. It's like, what's missing? Like all disease, be it mental or physical, has disconnection at its root cause. Our disconnection from community, our disconnection from the wild, our disconnection from ritual and ceremony is really at the center of so much of the struggle, the suffering that this world is facing. And so, yeah, for us, that was such an important part of it. Like, this is really, an experience when someone is going to come through these doors. Like, even though in this modern world, so much of this is going to be virtual at some point. We're going to include some actual physical meetups, which is going to be great.
Absolutely are.
But that real walking through the doors moment and knowing in your soul that you are home. Home in terms of home with the people, your soul family you chose to come here to be with, to journey through this experience of life and train. Like you said, that word's a really key thing. Every journey in life is one of growth and expansion for all souls. And we need to meet the material that can facilitate that. And that's deep work. It's deep training. Again, it's not easy, but it's the most rich and rewarding thing we can do. And the Academy is that place. And looking forward to opening those doors.
There's another aspect that just came to mind, hearing you come back to that word training. As you know, I've had many years of martial arts training. I'm not currently doing so, but I've kind of gone back and forth over most of my adult life. And that energy of the dojo, where you are there very intentionally to train, but it's a training that really goes beyond a kind of, physical training or a material training. Any good, true martial art is absolutely a kind of like mind, body and spirit. You really are training your emotions, emotional response, your mental response, as well as your physical. Your physical almost comes like, it's all interwoven, of course, because these things are, but it comes from the deepest place. And you enter that dojo knowing you are there to give your all in service of something. And I was really feeling, because there is something about the work we do and the way we do it. And again, anyone that's journeying with us, particularly in something like medicine, there is a very dojo-like aspect of it where there will be, oftentimes, two people, sometimes more than two people, like down on the mat together. There really is that like entering into the alchemy together, being that, like creating that crucible of alchemy and being those materials that are helping each other alchemize. And that will certainly be a very intentional aspect of, going forward, all the work we do, of course, but the Academy in particular.
Yeah, very much so. You said the bit I was going to speak to, which is the alchemy of it. Like that's it. There's very few roots around this. And training's hard. Being with the truth of our wounds, our shadows, our karma, collective karma, lineage, trauma, everything that's going on is not an easy thing to do, but given the right set and setting, it's everything to be with the beauty of life. And this is the truth. This is the sacred perfection of life. It is beautiful. But we can only arrive at beauty through unity, and we can only arrive at unity by being with the truth of, again, who we are, where we are, and that alchemy that you were speaking to there is what helps facilitate that. And this is a tough experience for many people in life. And if you can't connect to the sacred perfection of life, it's way more harder. Way more harder. And I can really, again, just as you were speaking, just really appreciating even more how beautiful that alchemy is to helping our souls arrive at the truth that life is beautiful. All of it. Death, birth, all of it. It is beautiful. and it has a sacredness to it that if you honor it, it will bless you over and over and over again. So therefore, it's very worthwhile doing.
So taking that word beauty and moving into something that is very dear to both of our hearts, this value, really, this honouring of beauty and excellence. I know one of the things you're really excited about with this move into Be Mythical is the podcast. This very podcast and the changes coming up. And so I know it's something you in particular are very passionate about. So would you like to just talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I gladly I will. So as we've been very busy with many things, this is something that we've been wanting to create for some time, and that is to really up level the production value in terms of the audio, the video, but the way we really work with the magic, the absolute wisdom and brilliance that gets illuminated, captured, caught on these shows. And yeah, so there's a whole kind of back end thing that's going to happen. But if we just kind of speak to it from the front end perspective, so expect to see much better quality in terms of just the video and audio, which should really help deepen that connection to where we're going. But also we're going to really do a lot to repurpose and make the most of this content in terms of chopping that up into smaller forms and various different other things. And I almost let slip something then that I shouldn't have. It's hard to kind of tentatively go into this without revealing too much. But in short, we have a lot of really powerful upgrades to the podcast that are not just upgrading the quality and the production quality, but are really going to also improve the quality of what is revealed, what is explored, how that pieces together. One thing that, Lian, you've beautifully been describing to everybody is how we're really focusing in specifically just on, via that lens of old souls, those who have come here to be their medicine in the world. And so much of what we sort of talk to, it can seem quite general, but we're really going to have it be in service of that narrative, that story, that journey, that path that we are here to lead others on. And so for the old souls, you're going to find so much, a greater level of value for you in your journey. And we're going to be really linking things together in a way that illuminates your path for you and allows you to have a level of discernment and distinction in terms of what's aligned for you and when. So yeah, in short, lots of amazing things to come podcast-wise.
And hopefully, anyone who's been a listener for some time is going to already heard a difference in this show. I'm told by you, a difference in this show versus previous episodes. So yeah, your ears are the proof of the pudding. It's a bit of an odd mix of metaphors, but
some ears love puddings.
So I think we're starting to kind of move towards needing to close on this episode. And I certainly know we want to finish by making some clear kind of like, I guess, articulation of timescales and invitations of what's coming next. But before we move into that, is there anything else that you feel right now when we're talking about this? Or one thing's occurred to me actually that I would like to be able to touch upon, but I'll ask you first. Anything else you feel that, again, this is going to be the unfolding of probably a lifetime of, expressing all the things that are there to express about being mythical. But is there anything that you would really like to make sure that we include in this episode?
Don't think so. The main, like I said, the purpose of this is just really just an announcement. We'll be covering everything else in lots of wild and mythical ways to come. No, my sense is I'd love to hear what came up for you.
So what just occurred to me is, and this is very quite meta really, because it's very much the way we approach everything, which is to always be in that inquiry of what's not seen, or what's in shadow here, or what's the opposite to this thing that we're talking about. And so it just occurred to me that part of us talking about what it means to be mythical, and those words be mythical, is the shadow of them, how they could be seen, how they could land. Some of which is kind of genuinely the shadow, some of it's like, okay, they could be seen to mean that, but it's not what we mean by that. That's what just occurred to me. It feels like that'd be really complete for us to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Let me just pause for a moment and reflect on. So, I think I touched on maybe one or two of those earlier. The shadow ways is it can be fanciful. It's like it's almost a privilege. It's almost something that's done after something else is put in place, where in reality, in reality there is nothing more important. This is putting your oxygen mask on first, what we're speaking to here. Like if you neglect or dishonor yourself in this way, you are dishonoring everyone or anyone you're ever going to be blessed to connect in your life, because this journey is ultimately about you being able to be yourself, the most beautiful, loving, powerful, magical self. And yeah, like that's kind of the key thing for me, which is you can think, oh, it's all right for them. They've got time to go ahead and do that, or whatever it is like that. And just the Disneyfication of so much of this kind of comes up when I feel into some of what our shadows may say to us when we arrive at either the threshold or a precipice of which the step forward will take us down that journey. Like what comes up, that's some of it. But what's anything key you feel in addition to that?
Yeah, there were a couple of things that occurred to me, and just to say, the new improved audio quality might be picking up one of my dogs snoring very loudly in the background right now.
Pros and cons to increasing production quality.
So one was, you mentioned the word magical when you were saying, our most powerful, loving, magical selves. And I was recalling a time a number of years ago where I really felt that call to step into the knowing of magic being real. And it was just as you said that, it was occurring to me like that's the case here too. There is a real conscious choosing into us knowing that this mythical worldview is real. It is not just real, it's actually it is the reality. And I think it's going to sometimes take, like, just again in my own magical path, that took time. There's almost a kind of like suspension of belief needed to even like journey deeply enough to actually have the experiences that showed me it was real. I couldn't have told myself it was real in a way that would have really had me feel it, embody it. But there is this kind of choosing into like, okay, I'm going to journey into that embodiment. It may take time, but it feels so important that right now it does sound fanciful, and yet I'm going to choose into the path that I sense I'm being called into, and that one day I can know this to be real.
I really felt the risk side of that, which is real. Let's face it. For many people, to honor the call of their soul isn't going to be easy, and it's going to come with certain risks. They may be blessed to, like yourself, be brought up in a family where that was really honored, celebrated almost. Yet, for many people listening, we really appreciate that depending on where you are on your journey, this isn't easy. Like, you know, this can really activate your shadow because it's risky. It doesn't feel safe because this hasn't been modeled. Nowhere in this very few places in this modern world do we see shining examples of this being modeled, where we know, okay, I can trust this process. I can trust what my soul is trying to guide me. I can trust what I'm hearing in the wind, you know, as seemingly fanciful as that sounds. Like, we only need to go and observe indigenous cultures and witness them and see how they're constantly listening to the subtle undulations of life. Like, that is the most natural thing in the world. But when we're in this modern world, that can seem alien. It can seem, like we said, fanciful, but ultimately it's really risky. And therefore, I think it's really helpful to bring it to the shadow, because this is what people are going to be meeting. When we are talking to this, for some, it can seem, they can feel the pang in their soul for how much they deeply long for this life, this deep remembrance that this is for them. And then the next moment, it's like a punch in the gut when they realize, or they have this negative voice come either from a family member or what, insert the blank. And so I just want those of you who are listening that are experiencing some things, first of all, I send you my love and blessings for this journey. But just to know that is natural. That is what we've chosen when it comes to this being alive at this time in the world. And I will leave that there.
The other aspect that came up was something that, as you know, I'm especially sensitive to, which is this notion of being mythical can absolutely land as something perhaps elitist or inflated. This idea that almost like, you know, some people are better than others, and this idea that, you know, there's all this, you know, trauma and pain and genuine difficulties that people are journeying with. And yet, and like, so quite bypassy as well, you know, almost like we just need to be mythical and it's all going to magically be okay. But it's not for everyone. Only some people can be mythical. And this is something that, you know, again, certainly me personally, I've had to really journey deep with, even like naming all of this Be Mythical. There was a very real resonance for me with the, you know, mythical itself, but to claim, to really stand in that energy of, and the invitation of Be Mythical has really had to confront and become intimate with that sense that it can seem as though we're being elitist, being inflated, kind of tone deaf, actually. And I'll share a bit about that, how that kind of where I've got to with that. But I'd love to hear you talk first on that, because I know for you it's not been quite such a challenging journey. And I think for you, there was just a very like clear, like rooted sense of like, this is the truth that we're speaking to. And it's not that inflated, elitist way of engaging with that invitation. So I'd love to hear you speak about that.
Yeah, well, I think it is, like you said, it is all about truth. This isn't about being anything that you are not. This is about ultimately being yourself. And this is really about synarchy. This isn't about hierarchies. This is about everybody being their true self. Simple as that, but I really appreciate why it's really worth speaking to. Because again, through culture, through conditioning, through, you know, almost open up the patriarchy, matriarchy thing, and then I'm like, let's leave that there. But like, there's so much.
All the time.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's really good reason for this. It's not like people are making up like reasons for it. There are some real, tangible reasons to be concerned in such ways. But because this is about what's true, and this is only ever about being the truth of yourself, not trying to be something you are. This is nothing to hide, nothing to prove. You know, you mentioned, we've already spoken to the significance of the shadow. The one thing that we have spoken to a lot on this podcast is sovereignty. Like, for us to arrive at the truth of our soul requires sovereignty. It requires the ability to elevate and discern our shadow. So we know what's true and what isn't, or what's serving and what isn't. And so, yeah, there's... Yeah, I'll leave it there because there's much more I could say on there. I'm just conscious of time. But yeah, ultimately, for me, if we just keep it simple in a world of overwhelming complexities, of overwhelming narratives of this or that way, the only way is your way. It is your true way that honors the truth of your soul. And anything else, I'm not going to say it's not serving, but it's more than likely less serving. And so, again, coming back to that message, be mythical, be your truth, be the truth of who you are, be your myth, honor the unfolding of your myth, live mythically. Like, that's, that the simplicity in that is why, yeah, it's why we're being called into this, to try and answer that. It doesn't therefore make it easy. Me saying it's simple doesn't necessarily make it so, but in reality, it is simple.
I love what you've said there. There's, you know, you talked about sovereignty and nothing to hide, nothing to prove. Really, this sense of our own soul's truth, it's beyond the ideas of inferior and superior. And so we know that if we're somewhere in one of those two places, it isn't really our truth.
Excellent.
It's not our myth.
That's it. That's the point of it. And there's nothing wrong in that. That's our human nature. But again, that's the level of elevation and sovereignty of knowing, oh, if I've got this relationship to it, if it feels this intense, chances are there's a bit of shadow at play there. And it may be worthwhile having an inquiry and contemplation into that. So yeah, brilliant point to really, I think, bring that to a close.
So we are in the midst of rolling all of this out, like as we speak, and certainly from a kind of overall brand perspective, my sense is this podcast will be going out before the overall every single part of that's complete. We're kind of like looking at what's happening when, but certainly over the course of the next month, we are moving, you know, everything over to Be Mythical. So depending when you're listening to this, we might already done that, or we might be kind of like stages along the journey to that. When it comes to the academy, there's going to be a kind of doors open, close temporarily, and then open again to anyone that's aligned to it. Would you want to speak a little bit about that, the kind of two phases, and how we're going to be moving into that?
Yes, and just to touch on the first bit you spoke to, which is this is a new one for us, and preferably, you know, everything comes into alignment, it's all set up, it's all ready, and then it's like, ta-da! But we have been consistently shown that what's aligned is just to honor this and roll it out and really birth this energetic into creation now, rather than, because there's so many facets of what will be mythical that it may be, yeah, it could be a number of months until it's all kind of in alignment. But I just wanted to speak to that, but we've been very clearly called to honor that, and to yeah, I'm sure as we're doing now and this goes out, the energy is really going to culminate and come behind this force of Be Mythical. So I just wanted to touch on that. And with regards to the Academy, much more to come, of course, but initially we are having a soft enrollment to our alumni, our cohort of alumni. So if you are one of those souls who has journeyed with us before in any way, shape or form, the Academy's doors are open to you. And we will be sending out communication directly to you via email and socials and various other things. But that's kind of the key thing. And so for maybe a month or two, we're going to be having this test voyage, this test mythical voyage with our alumni. And then we will open the doors completely to the wider mythical souls. And we don't have any concrete dates on that at the moment, but our sense is around a month to 2 months. And of course, we will let you know on the podcast and via socials as all of this unfolds. But yeah, that's I think that's the main bits with regards to when we're opening and who we're initially opening for, and then the second opening. And yeah, I think that's everything on there.
Yes. So in terms of if you're one of our alumni, we'll be reaching out to you very soon. And if you haven't, and that really includes anyone who has journeyed with us really in any way over, I think, the last 10 years. There may have some, it might be that if you joined us back in the day of Happy School, there's a possibility we don't have your details still. I think we do have most people's, but if you know you've journeyed with us and we haven't reached out to us, get in touch with us. But we will be letting you know as soon as we open in that kind of soft enrollment phase. And if you're not one of our alumni, but you know that you want to be one of the first to hear when we do open more widely, we've literally just had a page created. We can go register your interest, and that's at wakingthewild.com/academy. wakingthewild.com/academy. So if you go there, there's a tiny bit of details there. You'll probably get far more details via this episode than you will on the page. But pop your details in there and we will come to you first as soon as we're ready to open to, again, any old souls that are aligned to join us.
It's any old souls, as in any old iron then? Just any old soul.
I know.
Got to be conscious how we say that.
In the best way. Is there anything else you would like to say before we close, Jonathan?
There's a bit there, and I'm just trying to put it in some sort of order. I think what's there is just to really honour and acknowledge those souls who are listening now, and for those souls who are investing their time and energy to answer whatever call has brought them to this podcast, and to just bless you. Like, that's just, I just want to bless you and send you so much love and blessings for your journey, whether that is with us or not. Again, the podcast is going to still be an incredible source, even more of a source of material for your liberation, your growth, your expansion, irrespective if you choose to join us in the academy. And for us, like we said, there's no greater work what we're aware of on this planet than this. And bless you for choosing this life. And if there's any way we can meet you, we are very open to suggestions. Please either reach out to us in our group or send us an email. What's the best email, Lian? Would it be support@wakingthewild.com?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. So I just want to say we are open. And if you are one of the alumni, email us and let us know, even before we let you know. And we will, of course, meet you as best we can. But for me, it's just the clear thing there was just to bless you. Bless these old souls, bless this journey. And hopefully, I look forward to journeying with you in the not too distant future.
You saying that's brought to mind something that Sarah in the team, the Be Mythical team, has said a number of times, where we'll be talking about creating something and then she'll have this vision of our kind of, I guess, inner children or the children that we were, like really just being so filled with delight and love and joy to be able to like come together and do what we came to do in this lifetime. And that vision that she shared with me a number of times, I just had in the coming together of anyone that's aligned for the academy. I mean, really, again, in this lifetime, to have come into this lifetime with that being your path. But if we are going to, actually, our paths are going to come together in this lifetime in the academy, just that like pure joy and delight of those children within us getting to play together, getting to dance together, get to play hopscotch together, get
Finally.
up to all sorts of mythical fun and games.
Beautiful.
So we will be back in touch, as Jonathan said, as soon as we have more to share. And we'll also be doing a lot more of these episodes together going forward as well. So this is goodbye for now, and we will be back again soon. But for me, at least, thank you, Jonathan. This has been a pleasure to co-create with you. And thank you, everyone, so much for listening. All my love. Mwah.
Honor and a pleasure. Goodbye, everyone.